Okay, yes, yeah, let's get into it. Because we just had a Thunderbreaker, so I was thought, let's do another one.
Sorry.
Oh wait, I have this wrong.
The new patch is definitely just sad TV noises.
Sad TV noises? Yeah? Oh, sad TV noises. Yep, true.
Yeah. The weird thing for me is the DPS loss isn't consistent among characters. I've seen some people only had like a 10% loss, and some people had like a 50% loss. And I don't really know what causes that big of a difference. Maybe it's nodes, but who knows?
Nodes could be one. Is it? Yeah. Is it? Are those people in various stages of the game, or are they all like in the same stage of the game?
Most of them that I've seen all have Arcane Umbra.
Mm-hmm. So do some people use different skill combinations?
The combinations are mostly the same. Now it's different. Like we do have more options now because Thunderbolt Annihilation.
Because everything is equally bad now. Yeah.
Yeah. And I won't go too much into this. Thunderbolt Annihilate is the second best DPS, but most consistent. We have a new combo in Tidal Crash, but you have to have a macro to cancel it consistently, or be in a corner. And then now we can use Lightning Punch Annihilate, which Lightning Punch is the first drop skill, so it's kind of like Jet's old position where the 7% just makes it better because we get more Annihilates off.
Wow, okay.
But it's like 3% less damage than Thunderbolt Annihilate, so...
3 less or 3 more?
Yeah.
Wait, 3 more or 3 less?
No, 3 less.
3 less, okay. Wait, so what's the first option then? Tidal Crash plus Annihilate?
Tidal? Yeah, so what you have to do is you use Tidal Crash, but you have to cancel it immediately since they just added that in.
Right.
And the only way I've found to do it consistently is with the macro, so...
So you're spamming Annihilate basically, but weaving in Tidal Crashes to use them even more.
Yeah.
And then that's it? No other attack?
I mean, you have Burst Phase with, like, Gale.
Yeah, with Gale, yeah.
But outside of that, Annihilate's going to be your main source of damage.
Oh, some people said it might be ping reliant. That's probably true.
It could be.
If you have, like, really good ping, you might have been able to do, like, the kick-ass combo, but maybe you can't even do that one properly, so you don't really lose that much because your timing was already horrible anyway on high ping. And maybe on lower ping, you'll feel it way more.
Right. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. He does a lot of videos about Thunderbreaker and such. And he's, I think, the only 275 Thunderbreaker on Reboot, as far as I know.
Yeah, that's not a,
he says
not
as
a
long
huge
as you have
club.
a green potion,
Yeah, okay.
you're fine. Like, it's not a huge loss in damage, but there still would be one. But anyways.
Okay. No, but that's good to know for background. Don't feel bad about about sharing about that. That's good to know. I mean, I obviously can't be too in the know about all the classes, all of the active changes on every one of them, so it's good to have a little bit of
I
extra.
just don't want to take it over too much just talking about a dead class.
I mean, well, that's part of the session. Can also be this could be therapeutic, you know. You could just vent about you can get to some catharsis by the end where you're like okay, like you just completely surrender to the to the suck, or you know.
Right.
Yeah, so what I usually do is... Oh, I talked about this before. You were probably live, right? Probably, like, check if how familiar you are already with my content, with my stuff on YouTube. If you saw the last progression session, maybe with the Thunderbreaker. If you saw my, like, a bunch of my commands already, like, to which extent are you already familiar?
So, I've tried to watch as much of your progression series that is applicable to, like, my area, so to speak. Like where I'm at in progression.
Right.
I won't say I watch all the time, but I'll tune in every now and then.
How dare you? No, okay. Yeah,
I do want to go ahead and lead with that this account has been a completely solo progression, and that's been my goal, so to speak, has been to do solo CRA completely solo. Because I'm sure at this point I could struggle party it. I have enough, I think, to commit to a party, but I was to the point where I just needed the mechanics, and I probably would have been able to get Bonbon done, but now I don't think I have enough anymore.
Are you... Wait, okay. Are you around, like, the same level as the last guy? Like, around 210?
Yeah, I'm level 210.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't show that.
Yeah. No, that's
sorry,
okay.
no, I'm 215, actually.
Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah, no, the weird thing is if you open up your stat window, your level is not on there, which is, you know, always very interesting for me. Because you'd think that would have all your character information, but... Your fame is apparently more important than your level. So, yes. Okay, so 215, so you just got into, what is it, Yum Yum Island?
I have Yum Yum.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. Cool. So you want to keep it solo progression all the way up to solo CRA and then start partying stuff together?
Yeah.
Like Lotus Damien? Okay. Yeah, and I think if you're able to solo CRA at that point, you should, as long as you do a little bit of reading, a little bit of attempts, a little bit of practice, you should be able to be a productive part of a Lotus and Damien party. So that sounds like a generally a good idea. I think it's very achievable for people to get the solo CRA. It's not like I want to push people to do that. It's not necessary, but I think it's a challenge that is realistically viable for pretty much anyone coming into the game. It might take a little bit longer for some people, but yeah. Yes, and so that's like YouTube-wise, and like content-wise, more like command-wise. What have you already seen? What have you not seen yet?
I've seen your progression checklist. I've seen I use the flame calculator a lot, and then I don't know. Outside of that, it's kind of hard for me to remember off the top of my head.
What else? Like the dailies one with the levels, like the recommended levels for things.
I have seen the dailies ones. I won't say I do all the dailies I'm supposed to. Like, I'm supposed to be doing Zakam on a bunch of my, like, 120, 130 mules to get them up to 140. But
yeah, that's like a thing if you have time for that. I think it's very time efficient to do it that way because it's, I mean, I'm going to guess your Legion's probably around, like, 2K or something, right? The last guy was like...
Just barely above 2K.
Yeah. So at that point, it's just time efficiency-wise, it's still just a really good idea to do that. But yeah, that's more like a personal like balance thing. If you don't really find that you have time left in the day to do that and you're just primarily doing the things you enjoy, it's not like terrible to not do that. Because the way you can think about it, like if you prefer making a new character and get it to 60 instead, then that's the same amount of levels or maybe even more in the beginning. So as long as you're slowly working your way up to your destination of like a certain amount of Legion and all of the necessary steps, you don't have to necessarily do them all in there's no like a one objective correct order to do everything, and as long as you're finding enjoyment in playing the game and you're just playing it, then you're fine.
Right, and that's kind of where I was. I found that I didn't really know what class I wanted to main, so I was just using TB as like I kind of enjoy mobbing with this class, so we'll stick with it, and then I was just doing like all the other ones during events and such.
Yeah, so most of the other ones are like the Demon Slayer's Burn and the Lumi. Did you not finish the Lumi?
The Lumi was my first character I did. I got to 190, and I just hated playing it by that point.
Okay.
It wasn't fun for me anymore, so I just stopped and moved on to something else.
Does it have... Was that the first Terror Burn from this summer?
That was the first Terror Burn from the Awake event.
Right, yeah. Yes, but that's when you started playing?
Yeah, I played when I was younger, way back in the day, pre-Big Bang, but just super casually.
Okay, sure. Well, that's one thing to take into account, though, right? Is that the gear on the Lumi is temporary gear, right?
Oh, it's all gone.
Oh, it's all gone already? Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, on the picture it's still there, but it lasts... Well,
I've never opened it again.
Well, it lasts for 3 months, and if you got it first awake, it should still be there, right?
I don't know. To be honest, like, I think it's gone. I've been playing for a good bit now.
I mean, the beginning of... because it should have been like December, right? I think you should have a little bit left.
Wait, was it the Rise event?
Well, if it was Rise, then it's
yeah. No, it was Rise. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. No. Wait. So which ones did you burn the Awake event then? Demon Slayer is one.
Demon Slayer and the other one's further down. It's like the 115 that you see there. Yeah, the Night Lord.
Night Lord. Okay. So you
didn't really commit to finishing on that one.
No.
I should have, but.
No, that's fine. Just to make sure, double check that. Okay. Yeah. So I can keep listing commands that I have to see if you've seen them, but I have like a command for everything. So is there like a thing in the game where you feel that you don't really understand how a concept works, or like where all the sources are, or where you should be looking for?
Not off the top of my head. My biggest problems at the moment are either the most efficient way to do things or trying to figure out what is more gold efficient at the moment. Like, for instance, I have some items that have pretty terrible flames, and I could spend Meso to like try to get better flames on those, but I've also got gear that could use better potential, and it's hard for me to decide which one of these is worth more to do in the short run or long run.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, makes sense. So usually when it comes to equips and how to upgrade that, that's kind of like the last thing I get to. Because most of your equips and your stuff are more transient and will just get upgraded, get changed up, get get transfer hammered through, or be temporary gear and just you evolve out of it. Whereas the other stuff like your links and your legion and how the systems in the game work will give you more of a sense of general direction and more. Once you get that understanding, I think it'll make more sense on what equips to work on and where to work on them once you have more clear like what is like the priority of importance of all of these things, because it's not so much like do I need to put a flame on my pants or on my top or on my you don't have pants on top yet, on your cube or on your on your belt or on your cup, for example, or like should I be working on my legion and just specifically practicing CRA mechanics and working on my IED as a whole, rather than like where do I put a flame, right? Does that kind of make sense?
Right.
One is way more like basic, and I think once we get better understanding of like where does damage come from and how does that calculate and what are you aiming for in the short term and the long run there, I think it'll more clearly give you more insight on the priorities when it comes to the equip specifically, and then you'll start to see more already for yourself, like how important are these things really in the short term versus which are more long-term problems.
Right.
So with that said, basically the major cornerstones, if you're primarily mobbing, then like critical rate is like the most important stat basically. If you're also trying to boss, then IED is the other really important one. So we talked about it yesterday. You do get a decent amount of extra IED. So is this 84? Is this with your stacked thunder charges?
Yes, that is. Without stacked thunder charges, I have 70%.
70, yep. And then with that, are you aware of like the difference between visual and functional IED?
I understand it's there because, like, for instance, I know that my Annihilate has 20% extra IED on it, and I'm pretty sure that's part of the functional IED, right?
Is that so like built into the skill, or are you talking about boost nodes now?
It's a passive skill that it's like the hyper skill bonus.
Right. And that's just on Annihilate?
Yes.
And what part of your DPS would you say Annihilate is?
At least 60 to 70%.
Okay, that's pretty significant, yeah. So that's an important question to ask there, right? Because if something has 100% uptime and it is a lot of IED, but it only represents like 10% of your damage, then you can't really make too many assumptions based on that. You have to make sure that it is a significant stack. So that's okay. So that's something to take into account. The other sources that are that are specific would be like boss debuffs. I don't think you have any of those that give you more IED. The only one would be if you have the Explorer Mage Link skill, but I don't think you have that one yet, right?
No, I don't.
Yeah, okay.
The only extra link skills I have outside of that are the EXP ones, and I just didn't bother showing because that's just for like extra legion and stuff.
Yep, sure. Okay. Back up top. Lost my train of thought for a second. We talked about ID, yeah. So one of the major earlier things is familiars. Is a good spot to get IED.
Either I've had absolutely terrible luck with familiars, or getting an IED line on them is actually hard. But I have opened like easily 100 familiars and haven't gotten a single IED line yet.
That is not too far out of the norm. Because I have a guide for familiars that links to the database that looks at the total outcomes. I think I don't know exactly how many it is, but I think it's like around 100 for all of the possible outcomes. So that's not too far out of the norm, I don't think. Yeah, 90 options on rare. And common is 60. Yeah, so you would expect them a little bit earlier. Yeah, I opened like on all of my characters for 2, and like the luckiest I opened like 6, and then the unluckiest one I had to open nearly 600. So there's a huge spread, right?
Yeah.
But for most of it, it was around 160 to 180 cards to get 2 of them. So yeah, that is around 80 to 90 each. So like if you open up 100 and you don't get it yet, that's not too far out of the out of the realm of possibilities. But yeah, if you can get that would be huge in the short term, and it definitely would get you to enough IED so you can at least do 3-door, but probably also do Vellum appropriately, right? Are you aware of like the calculation for IED, how that works exactly?
I'm not 100% sure. I just know like the baselines. For instance, everyone says you need about 87% for 3-door. I think it's like 92% for Vellum.
Mm-hmm. Do you know where those numbers come from, or do you just go by the advice, I guess?
I mostly have just gone by that because I just haven't ran the math. I know that each boss has like IED stat line, so to speak. Like the new boss has like 375 or something.
Yeah, so that one's
exactly.
called PDR. You probably heard of PDR before, right?
Right.
Some people confuse ID and PDR, where they're actually like the opposite, but they interact heavily. So people conflate the two sometimes. But yeah, so bosses have PDR, which is basically armor. You have IED, which is basically penetration. You want to get more penetration to get through the armor, basically. If you go overboard on the penetration, then you have no damage left, so there's nothing happening. If you underrepresent your penetration, then you can get a lot of damage, but it doesn't go through, so that gives you less damage. So it's all about finding that sweet spot, and the sweet spot is determined by how much damage, so how much PDR does the bosses have, or do the bosses in general in the stage of the game have that you're trying to fight, and what is the access that you have to sources of IED, and to which extent do those have like an opportunity. Are you familiar with the concept of opportunity cost?
Yes.
So to which extent do those have an opportunity cost versus other sources of damage, basically? So those are the two factors that kind of factor in, and that will get you to that number of 87 and that number of 92, which typically, this is just to give you like more nuance on behind where those numbers come from. And some people might say that, and then some people say like, oh, so I need to see that number in my stat window. So would it be like visual or would it be functional? If it's visual, then it's highly fluctuating, right? For certain classes, some classes have like 20% boost node, 30% built into their skill, have a 30% IED boss debuff, and then and maybe have a bigger legion that already has 40%. Those people don't need 92 to do Vellum, right? Because all of that stacks together. So the way that IED stacks is that basically every percentage of IED gives you that percent of how much you're still missing to get to 100. So you can visualize it as two people standing far away, and then if you have a source of 15%, you travel 15% of the distance between you and the target, being the boss. If the boss has more PDR, it's further away. So the 15% represents a bigger distance, but there's also a bigger chunk of distance left, which is your damage reduction, ultimately, after all the calculations. I don't know if that visualization helps you. So it's like the whole thing where if you always take 50%, you can never really get to the other person, right? You can never really get to 100%, but you can get very close. And that's basically what we try to do, yeah. And we want to make sure that every step we take doesn't have a high opportunity cost versus going forward in damage otherwise. So, like for like a little bit of a math example, I guess. So you're at 84 now visually. So you have the 20% from your skill. We could say like times 60% because it's 60% of your damage. So that's like, that's really, really rough maths at this point, right? So that would be like 12%, right? So if you add like a source of 12%, when you're already 84, you get 12% of the 16% that you're missing. So you get 1.6 plus 3.2 is 1.92, so you'd go up to roughly to 86. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then you add two more sources of 15 on top of that, so you have 15% of 14, etc., etc. So you end up probably like around 90% at that point.
Okay.
And that would be like functional. So that would mean that for 3-door, that'd be like wildly enough. For Vellum, for Vellum, that would probably be like at the point where you would want it to be. I think 90 is enough. We might see if there are some other short-term gains that you can make, but in general, those old numbers also kind of take into account like full Golok sets at this point, because that was doable way back. Now that's not so doable anymore. Also, Vellum, we used to say like 93 for Vellum because Vellum used to have 300% PDR, but now he has 200% PDR, which means that if you have 90% now, you basically get the same amount of damage reduction as if you had 93 before. So like 90 or higher is generally like acceptable for Vellum. The 92, 93 and above, that's typically for Lotus, Damien, and everything above that, because that's all 300% PDR.
Gotcha.
So that's like the
All
general, yeah. So that's also when you saw the progression grid, right? That's also where those numbers there come from, and that links also to functional, links also to the ID calculation if you really want to check how much you have exactly, and then that's the number you're aiming for there. So the 92 here is more at 220 because that's when you're trying to get closer to like Lotus and Damien basically. So that's when you want to be already on the way there. If I put 210 here, then it would be 90 or 91 would be probably here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's when around you're looking to do Vellum, right?
Yeah, that's when you're looking to do Vellum basically, yeah. And yeah, and then later you start doing like a Helix as 250, so that's when you're looking for more like 93, 94. And then Lotus and Damien, you want to probably be around 93, 94, closer to 95, and then 95 you're doing like Lotus and Damien. It's not that you need more IED, but at that point the opportunity cost for more IED is going to be lower versus how much more damage you can get, so you do want to end up going higher. Yeah, and the new, like you said, the new boss Saren has 380% now, so that's definitely going to require you to be at least at 98, maybe even, but 98 functional by yourself would still get you to probably around 99 or something with like a bunch of boss and party buffs. Like Zero, for example, has a 50% IED boss debuff, which basically means you gain half of what you're left with. So you go from 98 to 99, or if you're at 90, you go to 95. You know, these are like huge indicators to help you get way closer. Huge sources of IED. Yeah, so one of the, I guess we can go to sources of IED. I mean, slowly we're already going into that, but so for IED I have like a separate like sources tab, so you can just like check which ones are already using, which ones are you not using yet. So ambition, that'll slowly level up over time, so that's something to take into account. That becomes 10% when it's maxed, but you know that'll just happen through leveling. Equip base stats, you don't really have much here. Are you working on the Monster Park medal for that?
I won't say I'm like going super out of my way for it, but I just do Monster Park as I have time to hop on and do it.
Yeah, it's I think very similar. Well, somewhat similar to the last Thunderbreaker. The main thing is I would say it's worth it. It's worth it to always cap on your Monster Park. Make sure that you have your base financial income with Maple Tour and Ursus. Are you doing both of those?
I am doing Maple Tour and Ursus because I need the gold funding.
Yeah, you need that daily bear income. Yeah, with that,
disappointed piggy bank away.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah, and they downscale it for lower levels, but I guess you missed most of the downscaling there with your level, thank God. But yeah, for like early starters, it's quite a lot lower now for both of those. Yeah, in general, just going for your 7 clears a day with the extra coupons, I would say is always worth it. You have more access to the Monster Park potions, which will help you train your main and your mules up faster. You have access to whatever other value is in those boxes, of course, and then you can work towards the Monster Park medal as well. If you end up just doing one day specifically, like Sunday, for example, right, because it has experience coupons in it as well. You could try to just do your weekly bosses on Sundays so that you at least have the 10% extra IED from the medal during those boss runs. But of course, as you get later into the game, you don't want to be bogged down to just being able to do your bosses on one day to optimize your DPS. You know, that's a little silly. Right. But that could be further down the line and not necessarily be something you have to work on immediately. Because Monster Park could also be a tool that you use to level up other characters with Zakum, for example. But of course, because you're limited to the total amount of runs per account, it's not as reliable for like major progress on many different characters as something like Zakum is that has a character limit. Yeah, so something to think about if you want to do that. I would definitely advise working on that. The other stuff, you know, the other CRA, Absolute Arcane, that's not really in play right now. Set bonuses is the next is also here, of course. So if you have like boss accessory and Golix, what's your boss accessory set?
I'm at boss 9.
Yeah. Okay.
I have boss 9 and 2 sets in Goku.
Yeah, we got the shoulder and the thing. Yeah, and 4 set pencil. Very important. Important to
Yeah,
mention.
Wings of Fate is too big of a bonus.
Yeah, the thing with Pencilier set bonus though, is that, and this is why, you know, I try to make sure that everyone veers away from looking at the damage range too much, is that the damage bonus percentage, that one is that includes the number of damage to normal monsters that you have in the set bonus for Pencilier, but that will not apply when you're fighting bosses actually. And if you're just regular damage range, that number goes up by that damage bonus number, but that will get subtracted if you're fighting bosses. So that will actually make the gear a little bit weaker than you think it is.
I guess that's kind of fair. I was mostly using it because of the large bonus to attack power, but
yeah,
it's only
it's not like. Yeah, I don't think it's relevant now to switch out of it. But if you're specifically looking more for like solo progress and trying to do good damage to bosses and something, either Necro gear or Von Leon gear, or maybe even Empress gear, but probably Von Leon is more like the sweet spot of getting good amounts of damage with set bonuses to be able to facilitate more doing that boss fights. But since Pencilier is not that much worse, and since you already have like Epic and even like a legendary piece, I'm not going to say like you have to switch this out to be able to CRA. Like, I'm pretty sure we can get you to solo CRA very, very quickly here.
I actually do have a set of Empress gear on standby just in case I decided what I've already invested in my CRA or on my Pencilier set like wouldn't cut it, but I haven't done it like any kind of potential on them, so to speak.
Yeah, I feel that at this point it would definitely be just looking at your stuff, it would be like a sideways upgrade where you could get a little bit stronger, but you'd have to disproportionately spend a lot of money to get a small. Cost a lot to get them,
especially the legendary piece.
Yeah, and but even like the flames, or even like the flame on your shoe, and it has 9%, and the overall is also 9%, and it has strength and all stat. Like these pieces are like definitely at the point where you'd want it to be able to solo CRA. Like there's no point in doing the other stuff. And the next step immediately is moving into the CRA, and then you'd immediately break up the Cygnus set again. So you can use them for looks if you want. You can like anvil them or something, but I definitely wouldn't go crazy on investing into those now.
So then really quickly before we move on that, for the Wings of Fate, so let's imagine, because it's only at 6%, if I can get a good cape with like solid flames on it, would you recommend just going ahead and working on that? Get it up to par with potential, like 6% wouldn't be hard at all. So
well, I'd say focus on CRA first, and then the next step, pretty close after that, is going for HMAG. And then once you get a Tyrant Cape for HMAG, then you can swap over if that one is good enough. Basically. Okay. Because HMAG will have flame advantage, so if you can get an okay flame on a Tyrant Cape, and the base stats are really good on that as well, then that would be like the next step. Until then, I wouldn't do anything cape-wise. This one is just fine.
Okay.
Okay, so for ID, let's see if we can get through all the stuff. Legion Grid bonus. Yeah, that's something I wanted to talk about. So for the Legion Grid bonus, so because of how it's calculated, right, do you see why you would want large chunks of large percentages of ID over small ones?
Yeah, because the small ones really don't add a bunch at the end of the day once you start getting to that higher end.
Yeah, and if the visualization, right, of the people standing apart, and you're like setting the steps closer to them, if you do like a bunch of baby steps, every single baby step gets even smaller chunk of the whole distance versus like a bunch of big steps, right? So with that in mind, where you put your Legion Grid pieces, I would say could be optimized at this point, because putting it in IED now and giving yourself one line of 6% IED in the grand scheme of things is not that important if you're looking at lines of 15 and 20% that you're trying to add up.
So you think instead I should just fill in the strength instead?
Instead, I would put it in critical damage, but only if you can get your critical rate up to 100%. You want to get your crit rate up to 100% so you can have your full efficiency of critical damage. And critical damage is a better source for damage because of how everything is calculated, and because of diminishing returns on larger amounts, basically. when you're bossing, your damage bonus percentage and your boss damage gets thrown into one pile and becomes a multiplier, basically like the multiplier of your skills become when it has like 800% damage. That's basically that same percentage damage. That all gets thrown into one pile. So there are diminishing returns there versus critical damage, where you see you have 51%, and critical damage effectively acts as final damage on critical hits, but critical damage itself is additive. But it's like, if you hit a critical, it's multiplied by the factor of critical damage.
Right. I can definitely get to 84 because, as you see, that's without Sharp Eyes. So I can reset my hyperstats, get Sharp Eyes in my V nodes, and then get 100 no problem. So I should probably do that.
Yeah, so that, yeah, if you're okay with like doing that puzzle by yourself, I also have like a crit rate sources, so you can keep track of like all the things where you can get the crit rate, so you don't like be like, oh, I'll just put everything in hyperstat, and then you check down the list and it's like, oh wait, I can already get more crit from other stuff as well, so I don't even have to put that many in.
Hyperstat will definitely be the last one I go towards.
Yeah, I mentioned it here first because it's like your largest amount, but when it comes into actually putting the points in, yeah, and everything also links to one of my commands basically. Where for hyperstats, I have a video on like how do you effectively distribute your hyperstat points while you're leveling. What are certain points where you just want to stick with it for a while? When do you want to min-max hardcore? That kind of stuff. Oh yeah, another big grid is the Link and Legion grid. I guess if we're getting into Links and Legion buffs a little bit, because that's for IED, that's also somewhat relevant. Have you seen this? Beauty of a, the layout could be a little bit better, but have you seen this?
Yeah, so this is actually what I was originally using when I was working on my Links and Legions. I was going off this and saying, okay, what gives me the most IED, which is actually one of the reasons I started with Luminous, because I knew even if I don't like it, it's going to be helpful for my Link and Legion.
Definitely, yeah. Well, the Legion not as much probably, but the Link, yeah, because it's just intellect and Legion, right? Yeah, yeah, true, yeah. And there's definitely many characters that have that, so I think it's important to look at both of those stats at the same time, because if something has a little bit better Legion but the Link is horrible, I think the other character should be a priority, right? The total account value for one character should be way better.
Yeah.
So that's what I would focus on. Yeah, as long as you have like clear in general, like what is your next character you're working on, and I generally say like if a character is horrible for you and you just don't enjoy it, then put it aside and just put a pin on it and return to it once you have a Mega Burn or a Terra Burn, and then just get as far as possible. I assume that's what you did with the Night Lord. Probably wasn't the character you were looking forward to very much. Yeah,
I was kind of torn because I was like, well, I don't like the idea of jump attack canceling with it. So I figured I'll go ahead and start burning it in case I really just don't like the class, which I didn't. And then I figured if I do like it, then I can just push it to 200 really easily.
Yeah, that seems. That seems reasonable, honestly. Yeah, so in general, just for Legion and for Links, just making a Legion of level 6, literally a Legion, like an army of level 60s, just to start flooding your board, so you can put all of the characters that have a decent level all in the board, and then getting all of the characters that are in there, at least the 140 through like Daily Zakum, is a very good way of getting to easily to 4K Legion, and be able to, so 2, 3, 4, and then you'll probably want to get as much crit as you need to get to 100%. Fill out your critical damage, and then put into IED to get to the point where you need, and that will depend heavily on the class, right? For some characters it'll be none, and they can just go full in boss damage with whatever they want. And other characters will have to fully fill the IED block. I think you're more on that side where you probably want more into IED, and then the boss damage won't be as important. As long as the IED is there, as long as the penetration is there, you'll do all of your damage to the boss, and yeah, the exact percentage of boss damage isn't that important. And with going past 2k for your Legion board will also be the effect that you will basically completely divest from the middle of the board where the attack and the strength is, and only use that as a connector between the left and the right side of the board. So you'll want to use, I think it's low level pirate pieces, mage pieces, and archer pieces to just do like a straight line through the middle, and just assign attack one side, strength the other side, and basically use it to connect crit and critical damage, and then go down into ID and down into boss damage as is necessary.
Right. Because eventually I'll be able to like swap them out in their positions, right?
Yeah, apparently you mentioned jump cancel with Night Lord. That's like a Night Walker thing, right?
Yeah, I must have got them mixed up. It doesn't change the fact that I don't enjoy it though.
Night Lord is basically just using oh god, I always forget the name of the skill. Showdown. You basically just spam Showdown. And then you have the little stars flying around. But in the beginning, the class is very squishy, and the stars that fly around are just super weak. The Assassin's Marks are very, very weak. So the kill speed early on is definitely very bad. And yeah, that's a huge bump to get over. Once you start getting your Legion and your Link skills rolling, and you just, whenever you're training, you just apply all your Link skills to your new character. You get some of those Monster Park buffs, get some of those, maybe there's an event, you can get some experience coupons. Either score some Kishin from a friend, or have a totem lying around that you're not really planning on using anyway. You'll definitely see huge gains as you keep growing your Legion and your Link out. And new characters, a lot of times when you're making them now, they'll be almost at their weakest, right? So they'll just gain a lot of damage overall. And as you look at your Legion and you look at your what does this game not work? And you look at your Legion and you look at your grid bonus and member bonus in the bottom right. You'll just see it slowly but surely building up and up. And every new character is just going to get so many buffs when you create it that it's never going to really be like a level 10 character. It's just going to immediately start hitting like a level 50 essentially. The only thing that's lacking is the skills to make it hit more monsters, I guess.
Yeah. So
you're not quite at that point, but once you hit like 3 or 4K, you'll really start feeling that way more. Also I just noticed your knuckles like the size of your body. Holy shit. It's
a little big.
That's a big thing, yeah. It almost looks like a suit, like you could wear it. It'll be like one of those concert pianist things, right? With the flaps in the back that they have to like make sure they don't sit on it. Kind of looks like that. Yeah, so that's so I would definitely, in the short term, I'd definitely move the ID pieces like into critical damage, and also see if you can repair like the middle line just being a straight line from attack into critical damage, so you don't have the extra piece on the bottom. It's a little bit min-maxy, but as soon as you, the sooner you get it like fixed and set up properly, the fewer things you have to fix later and have to like completely redo it.
Right.
Okay, but that makes Lynx and Legion all the priorities there quite clear?
Yeah, no, it does.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I guess we'll just click the next thing that you have here. The next thing you have here is Matrix. Do you have any questions about this, or is that all pretty clear?
So there's some things about it I'm not 100% on. Like, should I be focusing on leveling up one node as much as possible, or should I try to like spread two of them out, so to speak? Because for instance, I have 2 slots I could have boost nodes in right now. So should I, let's say, would it be better to have 2 level 5s because they'll both get the bonus from slot enhancement, or should I just funnel hard into one of them?
So in general, so when it comes to leveling up the slots, I would always go one at a time. But when it comes to leveling up the nodes themselves, you probably want to even it out, because every level gives you the same return value, but has a higher cost of leveling the higher it goes. So to keep efficiency there, you typically would just want to even it out. Of course, if you open up a bunch of nodes and you get way more of one than you get of the other, then that's whatever. But then if you can craft with shards, then you would just craft more disproportionately of the lower level, so you can even it out.
Right. Okay.
That way you keep the highest like total magic, total like final damage increase per shard invested kind of thing.
I gotcha. Because I'm already thinking about, I need to change out my boost nodes regardless, because like I said earlier, the new damage combo is just barely weaker, and it's a lot safer. It has a lot less end lag, so I'm thinking of going into that because it'll help my survivability against some of the bosses, I think.
Yeah, in that case, you're in a pretty kind of a sticky situation, right? Where you don't know if it's going to stay. It seems like it's going to, but if they do want to change something, does it mean that you have to completely redo your nodes? So the safest option would be, so you know about enhancing nodes and about like top nodes, tri nodes, all of that?
Yeah, so what I'm currently thinking, because my perfect trio at the moment in the top left is Gale, Thunderbolt, and Annihilate. I'm thinking about changing it to Gale, Annihilate, Lightning Punch.
Wait, I think I have a... Oh, you mean the level 9. Yeah. It's
yeah,
the in the bottom right. Yeah, okay, yeah.
So
That's the old one, right?
Yeah, and I'm thinking about just getting a new one that's just one skill different, and I will just like feed it into that one, and it should carry all the enhancement, right?
Yeah.
The XP should just
as long as the Gale Typhoon is still the top skill, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so with that, I would say that if you're still kind of searching for which nodes will you finally end up with, whether you have like the Thunder Punch, right? Whether you try to add that one into the mix, the safest thing would be, considering the volatile nature of the whole situation, is that it's probably the safest to make sure that the skills that you are the most 100% sure of, that they will always stay, at least, you know, like, unless they get completely broken as well, of course, that you focus on those being the top lines of all of your boost nodes. That way you still have the functionality of switching the other two around like you're planning to do now. Because if you start looking for something that's like a tri-node for now that starts with Thunder Punch, but they change it up, then you're maybe stuck with like a level 8 or level 9 Thunder Punch and your progress is set back again. Whereas otherwise, right, in this situation, you could just feed it into the next one. So if you can, try to err on the side of caution that way.
And yeah, and that's kind of where I've been working with it. That's why I have Gale for that one. And then on my mobbing ones, because it is a different combo, I picked Thunder for it because it'll always be the best for mobility.
Yeah, that's true. Do you use... Excuse me. The Cygnus Blessing 5th job, do you use that one a lot? Like, is that a good effect at level 1, or does that need to scale more?
So that's the one I often swap out the most.
Okay.
It's weird because it's like at level 1 it doesn't provide a lot of damage immediately, but when it does stack up, I guess towards the end of its duration it does provide a nice chunk. But most of the time I'm swapping out for either Phalanx Charge or Urda Nova if I need a bind.
Yeah. Or Holy Symbol when you're training, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the one that you can empower later on? There's like an empowered version of it, right?
I think so. As far as I know, this might be it. But I haven't heard about empowering one.
Hang on. Can I... It's not called Cygnus Blessing. What is the full name of that skill?
Empress Cygnus Blessing. Okay, so this is the empowered one, I think.
Oh yeah, because there's like I think there's like a skill where you have to... Empress's Blessing?
Yeah. No, that's the passive. It's Empress's Cygnus Blessing. So it looks like the Cygnus Blessing one, but it's blue, so I think it is the empowered one.
So you have
stronger.
You
45.
You have Empress Blessing, you have Cygnus Blessing, and then you have Empress's Cygnus Blessing. Okay, cool. Oh, Empress Cygnus's Blessing. There you go. Okay, yeah, that's the one we want.
Yeah, and apparently it upgrades at 245.
Ah, there we go. Okay. Transcended Cygnus's Blessing. Where's it? Can we find the page for that? Does it not have its own page? Well, that's unfortunate. Okay. Moonbridge upgrades it. Right, because it's like connected to the storyline and Empress getting her power creep, I guess. Getting her next level Super Saiyan. Yeah, okay. Right, yeah.
Oh yeah, it even says that in it, actually.
Oh, cool. Okay, good. Yeah, and then I think the percentages go up by quite a bit, and then it becomes a lot stronger. So yeah, probably not use it. Probably all the other skills are probably more useful. Even just using an extra boost node just for more percentages, so you can kind of scum your way into higher levels of boost nodage by just introducing more boost nodes in the short term. If you don't have too many skill nodes that are hyper necessary to get around, just flooding your board with skill nodes, if you don't have too many skill nodes that you need to get around early on, then just flooding your board with boost nodes can be a good idea to get to those higher, they like to get to level 20 for an extra target or get to 40 for the extra IED a little bit faster. And then later, once you start consolidating all of your boost nodes, then you start phasing the extra ones out and start replacing them with like super strong skill nodes that will be more useful at that point, basically.
Okay, well, I guess on that point...
Yeah, but you don't want to level them up too far.
It's like I could use loaded dice for crit rate and then move around some of my other crit rate to being more damage, but I don't know if it'd be better off because at the moment I use loaded dice for 20% extra damage.
Yeah, for bossing, I think whether you use it for damage or for crit rate is not very important because on the board, on your Legion board, that's interchangeable, right? It's the same, one block for 1%. But when it comes to mobbing, you do want to try to get to 100% crit rate so that you can use it for extra EXP, if you can.
Okay.
And I think you should be able to do that if provided that you get enough link skills with crit and your Legion board characters with crit because of your inner ability that will allow you, hopefully that will allow you to get to 100% without needing to get too crazy on all the other stuff.
And would you recommend keeping inner ability there or re-rolling that as well?
For now, with how much honor experience you have, I would 100% keep this for now.
Right.
Yeah, there's like nothing to really fall back on if you don't get it. And with the amount of income you have now, I don't think it's reliable to do that. Once you start thinking about like getting meso and drop rate gear, which can be in a little bit, but that's mostly like past this next hurdle that we're trying to get across. Then you can try to just like circulate reroll for like a line of meso obtain, but you want to preemptively already have that extra 30% crit rate waiting for you so you could just swap it out rather than having to fix that problem once you reroll your inner ability.
Gotcha.
Because like I said, like if you get your critical rate not at 100%, that means that your critical damage might not apply, which means that for you it's maybe not as extreme because you have a lot of lines, right? So there's like you have lower variance on how many lines will then not crit. You know, it like the way you can think about it is if like an angelic buster has 50% crit and they only hit a monster one line, there's like a 50% chance they don't one-shot the monster, right? If you have 8 lines, it's technically also 50%, but it's way closer to that norm because you have the distribution of way more lines makes it so that every single line has 50%. So there's like a huge failsafe for all the lines not to crit kind of thing.
Right, because you might only have like 1 or 2 that miss it.
Yeah, exactly. Or you might have 6, but then you still have 2 that do crit. So it never veers off 100% off of the crit, basically, or almost never. Yeah. So it wouldn't impact your overall kill speed as much, but it's still, you know, you want to be able to rely on having or on one-shotting or on two-shotting and knowing that you're going to do that because that's what you determine your rotation of your map on. And if that, you know, strongly changes, then that's very suboptimal. You have to go back to kill monsters or you're missing respawns, and that hurts your rates a lot. Yeah, so again, for that you could just check ! crit sources, right? And then kind of see what is reasonable, what could be coming next. And if it means just digging in a little bit deeper, especially when you're mobbing into more crit rate from link skills, then that's fine. But when you're bossing, you do want to mobbing crit rate, yes, because then you can use the loaded dice, right? And then when you're bossing, you can temporarily just rely on the loaded dice because it'll essentially be the same as using the damage one, with your crit board being the equalizer there. Yeah. Okay, ID, crit rate, Legion. Is Matrix pretty clear with that?
Yeah, no, that answered a good bit of questions. I'll probably end up taking off the blessing permanently.
Yeah, I think the decent sharp eyes there is definitely the move, and then you can still interchange depending on situation with other things. Like in some boss fights, I don't know how good some of the skills are. Some of them are definitely more. They're all like good at both, right? But some are definitely more mobbing skills, and other ones are a little bit more bossing skills. But
Yeah.
they both do like okay things at both. And since you don't have hyper burst, it can be very tempting to just leave everything on. But you do have to make some choices. And in the beginning, they're tough calls because you don't have that much space to work with, and you just want to use everything.
Right.
But you do have to make those decisions. And one thing that can help you with that is like doing a battle analysis and then just doing a practice run and then just seeing like how much of my damage does this skill really do. Because if you feel like a skill is very helpful, but you do your battle analysis and turns out it does 2 or 3% of your damage, then maybe switching that out with a boost node or with another skill can actually help you tremendously. So I would definitely advise doing that in the beginning when you're trying to kind of see, especially specifically in the boss fights. Maybe you even switch between the Chaos Rudibus bosses. Maybe like for Queen, the Shark is way better because, or the Shark is worse because you're going to stand up really close. All the time, so you can hit all your other skills, but maybe for other fights when you're standing further away, you want the Shark so you can just throw it at him from a distance, something like that. It could be class specific or like boss specific in the beginning as well. But, eventually once you start leveling more, you'll have so much space you can just pick whatever you want.
Okay. And then for farming for nodes, there's no like correct way to do it, so to speak, as long as I just have all my drop rate stuff on and I can just be at whatever map.
Drop rate, kill fast, and have totems or Kishin. Yeah, that's just the way to go. The other thing is event stores. So if you can get them from event stores around your level, that's always very useful. There's some, I think there's only like 20 or something in the current event store, so it's nothing major. And make sure you do your Vanishing Journey dailies, but I'm sure you're on top of the symbol dailies, right? That's
yeah,
probably one of the most important things. Yeah, nodes and symbols are like the main things that will push you through the Arcane River.
Yeah, because that's for each level 100, just free stat. Might as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 100 stat, and then just the final damage on the Arcane Power, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes. And we get a lot of percentage damage, huh, from as a Thunderbreaker.
Yeah, we do. And not a lot of boss damage, sadly.
That's good though, right? Because it gets onto a pile, so it does cancel each other out a little bit. It means that number will just look smaller, but you always want to see, and that's again to pull back to the progression grid, right? When it looks at functional damage percentage, that is boss plus bonus. So you're still totally fine, right? Like around 270, 300-ish, like around 220 is fine. You're already like blowing that out of the water. Like you already have 373 here, so it's a little bit lower with the damage from the Pencilier, but still you're like well over 300. So there's no problem there with needing a lot of boss damage or anything.
Right. Okay.
So that's good. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the other thing. It's not like the progression thing is also not to make you like feel bad or feel that you're super low or feel amazing like you're like on top of the world and you have like a huge EPness or something because you have such a big number. But it's more like, where is the biggest difference between what you currently have and what you're aiming towards, and as a result, like where would it be a good idea to shift your focus a little bit more so you can get disproportionately more gains out of your time, like you talked about before, right? Like time efficiency, not necessarily like what item is it the most efficient to use a flame on right now, but more like which area in the game would it be more efficient to put a little bit more of your time so you can get better disproportional gains for your entire account.
Right, and I know there's also things I want to focus on, like equipment I will be keeping, like my emblem, right? I've been trying to funnel a good bit into my emblem because I know at the end of the day that's going to last me longer than my Pencilier boots are.
Exactly, yeah.
For example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are ways, of course, of transferring some of that value, so that's why you keep the Pencilier boots at Epic and at the stars that they are, because you can transfer them over into something 150 and then from there into like Abzo, right? So you can maintain some of that value. But that also means that you will disproportionately spend more on things like the emblem where they just stay, and also because, you know, lines of IED and percentage attack are just more efficient than lines of 9% strength on Epic.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, I think both your secondary and your emblem are fine. Your weapon, of course, isn't ideal the way that it is, but it is, again, like a transient weapon, so you don't want to go too super hard on that one.
And I've also recently been re-rolling that one. I just I had some red cubes that were about to expire, so I went ahead and started re-rolling it. And once I got that out, because I was hoping to get it to legendary with those, but once I got that, I just stopped because I was like, this is okay for now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the fact that it already comes with 30% boss, so you're looking at 10% IED and basically 67% damage and 205 attack. And Knuckles already don't have great amounts of attack, so that's pretty solid. That might even, I don't know, set bonuses aside, it might even be okay if you're progressing quickly towards Lotus and Damien to even keep this as your weapon and only use your Fafnir weapon, even if you get it to be like transfer fodder into Absolab is possible. But you also have to kill Vellum at least like 3 weeks probably solo before you can start before you can actually make the weapon. So you might get to the point where the Fafnir weapon actually becomes a sideways upgrade, and where it might be even smarter to set that money aside instead of really going for full set Fafnir and just only using it for the Star Force part and then pushing straight into Absol weapon.
Fair point.
Well, mainly because of the base attack, right? Base attack of the Fafnir is lower, so you want to get a better flame.
Right.
Yeah. You have the set bonus.
Doesn't it, or no?
Yes, flame advantage and the set bonus. So those are pros, but the cons would be you're starting from rare, so you'd have to, upgrade it all the way up to unique.
Yeah.
Whereas if you spend that money, if it takes you an extra week or an extra month or so, but you can get to Absolab, and then you can directly funnel that money into Absolab again, like your emblem, which stay with you for way longer. That would be, efficiency-wise, that would be probably the call there. So if you had like an epic just 6% attack Knuckle or something, and it did, had like 5 attack on a flame or something, then I'd be like, yeah, ditch this, straight into Fafnir. You'll need that for a while, and then into Abzo whenever you can. But since everything seems already pretty on point, you already have a bunch of unique items, and it seems like you do know where you're going, and you're definitely at the point where you can do the Solo Series. So we kind of skipped past this whole thing, but like with Solo Series, what if you already tried? Like, how far have you already gotten?
I've attempted Chaos Von, done a bunch of practice runs. A lot of my issues before the patch change, I was definitely in a position to do it. I really just needed to get my mechanics down because I don't have a bunch of reaction time for whenever he does the ground slam.
Mm-hmm. Do you play with sound? Because there's an audio.
I do play with sound.
Yeah.
A lot of the problem is just in lag on my moves.
Yeah.
Because I do have an ability I can use to avoid it. It's just reacting to it in time. And I was kind of getting it, but then the patch came and I've lost a nice chunk of my damage. And
yeah, and
trying to scramble back to that point. The hard one for me is going to be Clown because I have so much AoE damage. It's hard for me to keep them split up.
Yeah, that is tricky.
So I'm either going to have to figure out how to do it consistently and still kill them within time, or get to the point where it basically becomes a DPS check and I die, spawn in, burst both of them as fast as I can, just 4 times over.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's even going to be possible, though.
Yeah, that'll depend on the length of your cooldowns and everything. The annoying thing with that is that you'll still need bind, because as soon as you respawn and start attacking, the red one disappears and then comes back for a slap, and then the blue one takes full damage, so they will still have to alternate in colors, otherwise you will always still be killing one way faster than the other one.
Yeah.
And you'll want the resistance link skill as well to make sure that you don't immediately get clapped by the red clown when he comes back. You want to be able to stay immune and stay in one spot and actually just like grind it out, because the worst part for you is if you're staying in one spot but you get knocked around by the boss, or you get like pushed, or you have to move because they're doing weird shit. If you can stand still and just lay in on them, that's when Thunderbreaker does what it does best.
And I guess the last one that's a little tricky is with Queen. I have the damage to break the mirror. However, my HP pool is kind of low. And the flame effect, once she stacks like 5 or 6 flames on us, it actually has this weird interaction where our abilities don't combo well. Because I guess it's like in a queue system with the burn flame.
Yeah, like stack. Yeah, it goes on a stack and then.
So.
Yeah, you're basically just spamming potions.
Yeah. I don't know what to do more so about that.
Yeah, in characters that have a lot of iframes, sometimes I advise people to just iframe the stacks instead of like the breath and the other skills.
I do try to, but it's a 45-second cooldown, so I can only really do one of them a phase.
Yeah, one of them. Yeah, that is true. The other thing would be, yeah, and you don't have an immune blessing. You could try with Urda's Will. That would be really interesting though, but you probably want to save the Urda's Will. Can you reliably use your iframe? You need one of the two to counter the zombify though, right?
Yeah.
In the reflect stage, yeah. But Urda, yeah.
The iframe should be, as long as I don't like do it right as she's about to switch phases, I should have my iframe back up by the time I hit zombie.
Yeah, because she does like after the reflect, yeah. Yeah, you could maybe see if you open up an Urda's Will. That basically makes you like hard CC immune for a bit. So if you preemptively pop that when she goes into the burn animation, it should also counter the burn stack and immune you to that. Or you can use it also to counteract the zombify incoming as long as you pop it right before. Like when she starts animation, you pop it right before. You should be immune to that as well.
Okay.
So again, that could be one of those skills that's specifically for a certain boss you splice in now. Because most of the time you'll be putting it in place of just a level 1 skill node anyway, so it's not like you're losing out like 30% of your DPS or something.
Right.
So that could be added value there. This was from after the Sunny Sunday event, right? Like this is how your gear looks now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing's changed. The only thing that's really changed is I now have the Cosmo ring, but I haven't put any potential on it yet.
Okay, cool.
And it'll probably be replacing the Silver Blossom ring, I think.
Mm-hmm. That'll cost you 10% boss, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess that's a good point. I should probably replace the Cracked Golix instead if I want to keep my boss set. But the other idea is I can take off Hayado's treasure and keep my 9 boss with a Magnus shoulder.
Yeah, that's...
I'll be like trying to figure out what's the best way to put it.
Yeah, okay. And no, it's good that you're... Yeah, I was going to mention it, but you already figured it out yourself, so that's good. You're already thinking with the puzzle pieces. You have the puzzle pieces in your head. You're already considering your options. That's good. Don't want to like micromanage you on that. That's your call. As long as you're aware of those decisions, then that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Strength on here, and yeah, and you have 15 on the cracked. Yeah, you want to keep that for now. That's a really big part of your damage.
Yeah. Anything that's above 9% in most cases was an accident. Like the gloves, I got that.
Yeah, I assumed the glove was an accident.
It was that epic. I rolled a red cube, it teared up, and I was like, okay, cool. Rolled again, it teared up, and at that point I was just like, oh well, let's just use one more cube to try and get something decent, and then and ever since then I've had shit potential, like RNG.
Yep. And then you rolled this, and then you teared up. You're like, oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a lot of strength on
to get 2 main lines.
Mm-hmm.
I used it all there, but hopefully we can get something good on the Cosmo.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, okay. Well, we've already talked a lot about the equips, but I think that gets us through like all of the side stuff, and 100% project throws us into the equips, right? The short-term, long-term, mid-term things to work on there. As long if there's nothing else that you have any questions about.
I guess the Lithium Heart. Should I even bother trying to get better potential on that?
No.
It gets such a... Okay, that's what I thought.
No, I won't waste your time on that. Just no. Just leave that where it is. It's fine. It gives you a little bit of strength. It enables you to wear your Android, which can give you shop function, I guess. That's cool. But yeah, don't waste any money on that. It's a huge trap.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
But I saw the 1% lines on it. I just kind of sat there and I was like, is this even worth it at all?
Yeah, you're looking at your other items and they get 6 at the same tier. You're like, this is not looking too hot. Yeah. No, it's exactly that. Yeah. At Legendary it gives 633, so that's the same as 1 line on your glove right now. So
yeah, I'll pass.
Yeah, pass on that. Yeah. Any other questions like that?
Should I go for SS ring before the Vengeful ring in the event? Or, like, am I fine just doing the Vengeful?
If you're sure you want to keep maining this and you want to go further with it, like, when it comes to how much time, like, how much effort and how many coins per value of stat that the ring gives you, the Vengeful is way more efficient. But, of course, it's capped to being as strong as a Vengeful, and an SS ring is stronger. But you're gonna be spending like 2, 3, I think 3 times the amount of coins for like 5. What is it? 5 weapon and magic attack and 5 all stat.
Yeah. And as for if I'm maining this or not, if I decide after I'm done with my solo CRA that I don't want to play it anymore because it still feels terrible, this is just going to be my mess up armor. Mobbing wasn't really hurt too much. We don't use the ability that was nerfed in our mobbing half the time. Okay. And I don't enjoy playing Kana.
Okay.
But I do like mobbing on this, so it works out.
Yeah, and if it becomes a mobber, whether you have like 5 attack or 5 more all stat on one ring, shouldn't be like the deciding factor whether you can one shot or not. Of course, if you have many of those instances together, it could stack together to become like a significant clump. But by itself, it shouldn't be any kind of deciding factor. So that does mean that for the short term, I'd probably advise to just go for the Vengeful. However, I don't know if you even need the Vengeful at this point, because you're gonna have 4 rings with the Cosmos and these 3. Like, how much money would you really need to dump into it before the Vengeful even got better than one of the other 4 that you have at this point, right?
Probably close to a little over $1 billion.
Yeah, you want to get like 15%, right? But you already have uniques that don't have 15% yet, so you'd get it on those first.
Right. So should I just do nodes then instead?
Yeah, I would focus on nodes first, yeah.
Okay.
And if by the end of the event you have a bunch left and nothing else really functional that you want to buy and nothing like... yeah, there's nothing else that you want to get. You can definitely get the rings as like backups, or if you want to go further, you'll have to have like probably up to 8 rings, right? Combinations of meso, damage, drop rate, all of that. And then you can definitely get back into that, but I wouldn't say for the short term, with your current situation, I don't think it's necessary to get another ring.
Yeah, and in long term, they'll come back eventually.
Yeah, they do always come back. And with Neo, we'll have Tenebris, Glory, and Awake Rings coming back as well. So you can get 2 of those really strong ones on this, because I don't think you can get 2 Awake Rings. But you can get the other 2 rings on here, which will be huge, because those have the same stats as Awake.
Okay.
So it's like 40 all, 25 weapon magic attack, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So those will be huge. Yeah, we can do like 1 equip at a time, I guess. Yeah, so Emerald Secondary... So WSE is like first, right? Those are like all unique, right? Those are your highest ranks. Well, apart from the outlier that was the glove that did weird things. Those are both. All 3 of those have like 2 somewhat useful lines, and can reliably just stay where they are. Those are fine. And the flame on the weapon is also good enough. Star Force. So like that is already set. So that's already a very, very good solid foundation. Badge, that's all you can do. Metal, I would work on the Monster Parker, but this one you have now is like a decent placeholder until you get that. The wings is fine until you can get the Tyrant Cape. The heart is fine. Android is whatever, who cares. Glove is, of course, perfectly fine right now where it is. The shoulder, so that's like your option, right? To switch out with the Royal Black Metal Shoulder. The earring is fine where it is. Good enough flame, good enough potential. If I remember correctly, right? It was like 50 something. Like 55 strength and 9% strength, I believe.
It is 55. Yeah, you're right.
Yep. Okay. Look at that memory, dude. Still working. See, this is why I test my brain, chat, okay? Also, don't be like mad if tomorrow you come to the chat and you're like, oh, I did all these things and look what I achieved now. I will completely forget your whole account. I will already be thinking about the next one.
You do so many of these, I don't expect you to remember.
Yeah, exactly. I do so many. So people will be like, "Oh, remember last Monday? I already got this." And I'm like, oh, "I feel so bad, but I my memory is like completely wiped. Like I make room, and then the hard drive gets like reformatted afterwards, and we go over to the next one." So the pencilier stuff, I remember that's all completely fine too. The Iron Face, I believe the flames were like over 40, like 40 to 50 as well, right?
Yeah, they're 51 and 57 on both.
Yeah, okay. And then you have 6% strength, 9% strength. Yeah, that's perfectly fine too. So that would be once you're thinking... So in general, once you're thinking about going past 15 stars, so like you will have like a huge cycle of, 30% off, and I have money, push everything to 15, and only push things to 15 that you're planning on pushing past 15. And that kind of like cycles back into your original question, like when do you upgrade, like where do you upgrade priority wise? Once you get to the point where everything is 12 star, most of the stuff is like epic or unique, and the flames are kind of like okay, acceptable when it comes to the progression grid, right? Because you use the flame calculator, so you know what numbers you're looking for there.
Right.
Once everything is like roughly within those parameters, you're just looking at which event is next. Oh, there's a 30% off next, push everything to 15. There's a 5, 10, 15 next. Either push everything that's not, not at 17 yet to 17, or consider pushing things past 17. What do you push past 17 on the item if you have a lot of backups? If you don't have a lot of backups, take an item 10 levels lower, push that to the amount you want, and then transfer over, lose 1. So on the items that you're going to be doing that, you know that you're going to be overriding your potential eventually. So don't min-max on your potential as hard. The items where you can get a lot of backups and you can Star Force on them because that's cheaper, right? Not having to transfer and lose that extra star. You can go harder on potential a little bit earlier on there because you're going to save it in the trace. Now,
right. Like for instance, we would do that with like a Gallix belt, and we would prepare pink beam belts for that, right?
Exactly. That's the best example for the other one. Yeah. The example for the first one is a little bit contradictory. So that would typically be CRA stuff, right? There's options there. Someone who starts off with like it's their 8th character and they have like billions lying around. What they would do is they would use like a 30% off or a 5, 10, 15, whatever comes around, and would just like mass Star Force Pencilier to get to like 22, and then transfer hammer it into their first CRA gear they get to have 21 CRA immediately. What other people usually would do is they would have like 10 or 11 star Pencilier. By the time they get CRA, transfer hammer it over, so they start with Epic immediately, and 10 star, get OK Flames, and get it to 12 maybe during a 1+1 event, then get it to 15 during 30% off, and then get it to 17 during 5 and 15. And then depending on if you already have backups at that point, you might maybe yes, maybe no safeguard. But eventually, you typically keep the potential for CRA initially a bit lower, because once you get to Legendary, you add a lot of junk lines, and the efficiency-wise for tiering up, your odds of getting good results will be getting lower. Similar to trying to get ID on your familiars. If you go for high-rank familiars, the rank actually goes down because there's more variance in the outcomes. So you actually you're trying to open as many commons as possible. And with CRA, the sweet spot is to be at unique. That's where you have a very good chance of getting like the same potential that your cracked Gallix ring has. Whereas if you go to Legendary, there's so many junk lines extra in there. Not as much for pants, but mainly for top and especially for the hat. It's better to keep those unique and pretty much get your WSE, all of your accessories, and your Abzo stuff. Once you start working on that, like get all of that to Legendary first before you even consider doing your CRA. But that does mean disproportionately for CRA stuff, and once you're constantly doing the backups, those are the first items where you would be pushing past 17 stars though. So you'll be looking at different balance of upgrading because of that.
All right.
Right, because you can have way more backups, so Star Forcing becomes more optimal, but potential-wise, you have the lower tier than Abzo, and you have more variance in the outcome, so you want to keep that a little bit lower. So that's kind of like the internal balance between the items. Accessories are pretty high when it comes to to cubing and to getting it to Legendary, because they're typically a little bit harder to get replacements for, and it's like later in the game you gotta start crafting Meister, you gotta get reinforced earrings to transfer hammer over. The belts you can do, but the belts are kind of like an armor, they're not really an accessory, right? And the variance of outcomes and potential lines, again, for accessories is lower, so it's more reliable to get good stats down. So that's kind of why the internal balance of how you work on things and which aspects you work on vary the way that they do. And you'll notice that I completely left out flaming and that whole topic, and that's because there's no event for flaming. So you'll look at cube sales, you'll look at Star Force sales, and use that as a guideline to keep upgrading your stuff. And flaming, you basically just use whatever boss flames you get. And then event flames, right, from event stores, if you can get like stacks and boxes of flames, that could be very useful. But really, like, as much as your equips are kind of like the icing on the cake of your whole account, the flames on your equips are like the I don't know, like the sprinkles on the icing or something. Like that's like the very last thing that you like work on to completely finish it off. Yeah, it definitely adds up, and you'll just get more into it once you get into Abzo, because that's when you can start getting some really, really sick flames. Level 160 flame advantage items, like your Abzo weapon, and then the cape, shoe, glove, like those flames is where you want to start getting really serious.
All right, that does kind of help a little bit, because I was wondering, like, the two pieces of equipment I'm looking to upgrade at the moment is Chaos Horntail Necklace for Dominator Pendant.
Mm-hmm.
Because it has flame advantage. And then I was hoping to find a ping cup with a better flame on it. Because this one's just 4% offset. Not insane, but better than nothing.
Yeah, what you can do with ping bean cups is just keep whichever one you have that's the best, and then keep one spare, and then if you get a third one, you can fuse them together to get like an extra roll if you get 2 bad outcomes. So that's like getting a free flame roll every time. You just make sure that your alchemy is like... Is your alchemy level 6 at least?
I haven't actually messed with any of that at all.
Oh, professions at all. Okay. So it's useful when you want to... Do you ever... So you never extract items?
Not really, no.
Okay, so there is decent value in that.
Get into because eventually I need to do Meister rings, but I didn't want to start getting into that until I was ready to start working on Meister rings and such.
Well, when it comes to extraction, as soon as you start getting drops over level 130 or higher, there's a very good chance of getting Philosopher's Stones from extraction, and they're not just a nice resource for things like Meister, but they also NPC for 300k each, which is way more than what the ancillary pieces by themselves NPC for. So if you can get a large horde of items and extract them all, you can actually make a decent amount of money out of that as well.
Okay. What's the best way to level up your alchemy?
So leveling up, well, that's the annoying one. To level up, you basically just harvest all of the big flowers you can find, specifically gold flowers, because those just drop oils, fully made oils already. And then you basically just take the oils and turn them into potions. And that's just it. Even if it's their higher level ones and they fail, it still gives you a lot of mastery, and you just basically brute force your way to level 6. The only things you want to definitely keep is the level 10 ones. All of the purple oils, you want to save those, but all the other ones you can just make whatever potions you can possibly make with them. You just brute force your way, basically.
So just sunflowers for that.
Yeah, well, in general, you'll always want to harvest big flowers and big veins that you see, because those all have a chance for the primal essences that you need to make the Meister rings. And that's going to be... Those are very, very rare. So the more instances of harvesting you give yourself, the better.
Alright.
And then the other thing you want to do for that is kill normal Arc, if you can do that. If you can, like, pre-burst him, or with your iframe get to the point where you can reliably kill him.
Yeah. I can kill basically any boss up to... I've been doing normal Cygnus and hard Hello solo.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that's a very good situation to be in. Okay. Yeah, that's why you had the whole setup for Cygnus, right? That's why I
With the one exception being Madman Ramaro, because
he
just does so much damage. Yeah, he one tap so much, and it's like,
yeah.
Low HP, I can't help it.
You'll just stand there and then be like, "Ooh," and then you're like, "Oh," you're just dead. Yeah, that just that happens. Yeah, nothing much you can do there. Yeah, so so for extracting, you want a higher level profession, and you could technically also use accessory crafting or smithing, but you want to get your alchemy up because that's what you need higher level for fusing. So you want to get at least level 6 on those on alchemy. Yeah, then you can fuse cups and extract equips, and then you can make money from the Philosopher's Stones as well. So that's a little bit extra revenue stream, because if you have like a whole inventory full of pencil, you harvest all of that, I think you make roughly 3 to 4 times the amount versus NPCing it. No, more actually. 4 to 5 times the amount, I think. So, you know, one inventory full becomes like 5 inventories full. So it does add up over time quite a bit. And you'll build up on those monster crystals that you need later to craft all the other stuff. And then you don't have to start trying to find those items. You'll already have a bunch of them in your inventory. And if you have extra like flower oils and that kind of stuff, next time you go on another character and you want to level your alchemy, you just transfer them over, boom, and you immediately have your alchemy leveled up. That does help a lot. What I did was I had like a stack of, I think it was like 3,000 of those oils just from, you know, over time, and then just transfer it to a character, boom, 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 and just get my whole account level 6 alchemy. So now I can extract everywhere, fuse everywhere, whatever I want. Which was very useful to funding my characters with necro gear, because you could just do you can do normal Hilla very easily with like a drop coupon, and then, you know, if they're shitty flames, you just do it again the next day and fuse them together, and then, you know, before like a week or something, all of the characters have like very decent gear, and then you can move on from there.
Yeah, I got some bad advice in the beginning of this, and I asked people like, "Hey, is necro gear worth it?" And everyone was saying no. When now I know in the long run I should have done necro gear because of the flame advantage.
Yeah.
Most people were thinking like no, because you'll just get like a carry for CRA or whatever, and
Yeah, if that's your if you would get Sierra carry, then Necro Gear is not worth it at all, of course. No. But if you're trying to solo progress, I would say it's definitely worth it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
by the time I hadn't realized that, I had already 6% on all of my Pencilier, so I was like,
yeah.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, no, it's not a huge difference because your flames on your Pencilier proportionally are also pretty good. So it's not you're not like missing out on that much because the set bonus of Necro is also horrible. I think it's like 5% damage for 4 set or something, which is just laughable.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like you're missing out a lot. No, like I said, if you do this, the best thing probably, like the best of both worlds, would be Von Leon because it is flame advantage, and it's higher level, so they get those flames also a little bit better, and the set bonus is also significantly better than Necro. So then Von Leon would have been like the sweet spot. Or if you can get strong enough with like temporary Necro into Cygnus, and then with the Cygnus gear doing CR8, that would be like best of all the worlds. If you could get like 5 set Cygnus.
The Signet set.
Or 6. Yeah.
The only problem is like the weapon is worse than Sweetwater, isn't it?
Like the base is lower, but it does have flame advantage, and the ideal setup would be Sweetwater weapon with 6 set Cygnus with the shoulder, because that way you can get 30% boss from the Cygnus set and a 30% boss on the weapon. But I only have one character that was able to get all those things. The drop rate for shoulders is absolutely horrendous, and either you get very lucky on Maplehood Watch, or you get very lucky on a drop. But at that point, you got to think like, okay, it's a weekly boss. Do I really want to do this boss for like 6 weeks to try to get the drop, or do I just brute force my way, make some money, and just kill the boss with other stuff? Like, do you really want the character to look pretty when you look at the equip inventory, or do you want to actually get play the game?
I was mostly only doing it because it's decent income. It's like 45 mil for killing it. And I was like, well, I was in a slow period at that point. And I was like, I'll just hop on, do it, and then I'll get the equips because I'm doing it for gold anyways.
Yeah, it's a huge chunk of money, right, that early on. Even Easy Sickness is like 30-something mil.
Yeah.
And she's not super easy, but she's also not that hard. I think it's a good test, especially if you're trying to get into bossing. One of those bosses where you can actually do it pretty early, but it's not super easy. Like, you do have to engage with the mechanics. You have a huge cooldown on your potions, so you're really forced to dodge a lot and to focus on not getting hit, which I think is a very good, which sets you up for bossing later on. Very unforgiving, especially normal Cygnus. The potion lock takes forever.
Oh yeah, and I personally think she's a little bit easier than in Mag, which a lot of people struggle on at first. So.
Yeah, it depends on what class you are. Some classes, if you have some kind of knockdown resistance, then Magnus is just laughable. But if you are a ranged class like a marksman, and then when you stand on top of him, you do no percentage of your damage anymore, it's horrible. Right. Like, I hated even doing hard Magnus when I was at 250 before I started throwing some funding at my marksman. Because it's just so annoying. It just counters you completely. Ugh. Yeah, but on my arc, I would just walk in and just like go into spectrum mode. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, I just destroy you. I've got a built-in bind. I got built-in burst. You just blow you up. Yeah. So, is there a specific equip when you look at your equip window where you're like, I'm not sure what the next path is? Oh, one thing we didn't mention is like, so once you go past 15, that's when I started. When I started that sentence like half an hour ago. Right. And you're looking into like 15 to 17, and you're doing more Galaxy stuff, that's when the whole boss accessory set kind of like starts crumbling, and that's when you start looking into the Sweetwater Iron Face as well, right? As like replacements for the current ones. That's when that's when that comes in.
Because once we start looking to break up our 9 pieces, when the lower sets actually start mattering.
Yeah, and basically you lose the flame advantage, you lose the set bonus with the Sweetwater stuff. But basically, if you go past 15, you get an insane amount of just stat and attack from Star Forcing it to 17, and the higher tier in the potential, and that'll definitely discount for it, especially because the set bonus you're replacing is going to be way lower because Gollux is starting to come into the equation, because that set bonus is just objectively way better than the boss accessory set.
Right. I don't think there's anything I'm too, not sure of what I will eventually go to, because I know I'll be wearing Dominator Pendant Golux, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
And then rings are, for the most part, fine. I don't think I'll be wearing the Sengoku set. I mean, Kana ring will always be on, but
It'll depend on how good it is. Like at that same point, when you're looking at the accessories and you're looking at like 17 or pushing beyond 17, that's when you're also looking at like transposing the pendant into the Sweetwater pendant. And when you're thinking about crafting Meister rings and maybe pushing higher there, transfer hammering into the superior ring, stuff like that. That's when all of that will come into the equation, basically.
All right.
Oh yeah, and the nuance for the weapon I think was probably pretty important to emphasize, right? Like maybe not go too hard on Fafnir when you get it, because you might already be a lot closer to Abzo than you think at that point.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yep. With that though, if you can get into Lotus and Damien in not too long, like in the kind of foreseeable future, you do want to take the option into account of getting at least 2 characters past 200 to do the weekly Scrapyard and Dark World 3 weeklies on. Weeklies, nice. Do the weeklies on, because those items can be transferred through the storage, and you need quite a lot of them to be able to get the coins to be able to buy the items from the store. Are you aware of those weeklies and everything? Are you doing those?
I know they exist. I haven't been doing them.
Because you get 12 items, I think, per week. And you need 20 of them for 1 coin, and the weapon is 5 coins, so that's 100 that you're looking at. So if you're doing it just on 1 item, that's like 9 weeks.
So then I might be able to do it on my Demon Slayer. I pretty much got him to 5th job and stopped. And then
they
realized
have a solid 5th. Yeah, and they also only might be able to do like the lower level ones. So the sooner you start, the sooner you can start building up a bank of them. Maybe if you level up a Kana or something, it's very easy to like exchange with someone else. Maybe they have a Kana that they want to do it with your Thunderbreaker, and then you go on your Kana and they go on their main. You kind of like exchange and help each other out. That's also a very popular option to speed up the process.
That's a good idea.
And it saves totems, which is mutually beneficial there. Yeah, keep an eye out for Dark Lords of Darkness if we get it, because you can definitely use the totem upgrade.
Oh yeah. The totems suck to have to farm for all the time. I need to either buckle down and do Afterlands or just figure out a better long-term solution.
Yeah, it's the same as like the heart, right? Like it's okay to have something there, but it's definitely not. You know, now that we know more about the other stuff, right? Like the critical rate, critical damage, ID, boss damage, and like the whole set bonuses and how all important that is. Like, if you put that all into perspective, like the potential in your heart is like such a blimp, like a blip on the radar. Like, or how good that other totem is like, you know, definitely that. In the beginning, many people have that focus of like, oh shit, I'm so weak because there's so many slots in my account that are unfilled. But what they don't realize is like you can spend 5 hours doing quests to get 3 more equips, or you can spend like 3 cubes on your emblem and get like double the gains. And
because when the last event just finished, everyone was like, "Oh, you need to get the Ladirium heart because it's permanent and you can potential it." I was like, "Well, I kind of want the experience nodes," but looking back on it, I wish I had gotten the experience nodes.
Yeah, that's a tough one though, because experience nodes are kind of like the master SS rings of like of items, because they give the experience of 3 nodes. Which, if you're trying to max like a skill specifically, like specifically max the True Reckoned Reflection past 235, which is like the only you can only get it from weekly hard will skills, or you're pre-buying them to max out the Saren skill when you get it, you know, something crazy like that. For 1,000 coins, or typically whatever they are, very, very pricey, for the value of only 3 nodes, quote unquote, is very high. Especially when virtually every node that you open now, it has a good chance of being value for your account. It'd be way more valuable to just buy out straight up nodes and more direct upgrade items. Yeah, the experience nodes are more of a like late game and end game thing, I would say.
Okay.
Just because of how prohibitively expensive they are.
Yeah, they're for like normally what I've seen, every 1 experience node you can buy, you're better off getting, or you can get 10 normal nodes in return.
Yeah, or you can get like a box of flames or like a box of cubes even, which will probably, even with the RNG implied there, will probably give you better gains.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily, well, it was bad advice to really put a lot of expectation on the Lithium Heart, but not necessarily bad advice to take something else instead of the experience nodes. I guess I was trying to give a little bit of nuance there to whoever gave you the advice. Not to completely like blow them up.
I guess the main things are work on a little bit more IED, of course, Lincoln Legion.
Yeah.
Swap out my V node for either Sharp Bias, falls into the crit rate, and then or something else, and then work on the 2 small possible replacements for equipment, being Dominator Pendant, and then I need to work on my Alchemy as a side thing, mostly
Alchemy?
for.
Yeah, and repuzzle your hyperstats as is necessary, and kind of take into account like which characters you think in the short term you can make. Like, what are the gains on critical rate that you think you can actively make in the short term? Like, can you get your Phantom 5, like the extra levels to get the level 2? That's 5% right there. Can you add a Marksman if you don't have that one yet? I'm not 100% sure.
I don't have Marksman, so I could do that.
If you get that to 140 and you get the Night Lord to 140, then boom, that's 4% right there. And then take those into account, put those as like short-term to mid-term plans, and put your hyperstats in accordingly, so that every time you look at your inventory, you're like, oh shit, I'm 3% crit short. Oh yeah, I need to work on that character, fuck. And then instead of having to redo your hypers, it gives you a little bit of that motivation, a little bit of a kick in your butt to be like, okay, I need to work on this one this one character. And then when it's done, you can be like, yes, I can see that 100% now. Every time I open up my stat window, I pop that Sharp Eyes, boom, 100%. Sweet.
Alright. And then I don't think there was much of anything else.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah, the familiar thing, I guess. But as you build more in Legion and Lynx, you'll get more characters and just funnel all of the cards into your main until you have your IED. Yeah,
familiar has been the bane of my existence so far. That and Soul Weapon, I just cannot seem to get Soul Weapon drops on this character. So I haven't. I've failed it like 6 times.
There are those items that if you don't need them, they're everywhere, and if you want one, it's like impossible to get. It's very, very typical. Yeah, if I have 1, it fails, and if I have like 6 in it, the first one works, and I'm stuck with 5 that I don't have anything to. I can't do anything with them. Yeah, it's typical. I have so much crit damage. I think it's just the class itself. Some classes just have more crit damage built in. I'm pretty sure TB has some crit damage, right? On your mastery or something.
I don't know off the top of my head, actually.
I think there's like
I just know that I don't have a lot of like things put in for crit damage, so it must come from my natural stuff. Yeah, I have 25% crit damage from Thunder God, which is a 4th job skill.
Yep, there you go.
And then 20% from Knuckle Expert.
Wait, so can you go over your hyperstats real quick? What do you have in those?
Yeah, so 5 strength, 2 dex, 1 in crit rate, 6 in crit damage, 10 in IED, 8 in damage, 9 in boss damage, and then 7 in attack power. What I've been using is the like hyperstat calculator thing that tells you where like to best put your stuff.
Yeah.
It's a cards optimizer.
Yeah. I think I should have a chat with him about that one, about his whole methodology behind that one, because like critical rate is not in there. I've noticed.
No, his didn't. I've noticed that when my crit rate was lower, it did tell me to put like crit rate into it, but.
Oh, it does have a crit rate in it?
It did at some point, like, because for a while I had 7 in crit rate and it was telling me to put crit rate in it, but now it doesn't anymore. So I don't know if maybe he changed something or what.
Okay, yeah, because I did mention it before during an earlier progression, and I do know that he like knows about my content, so he might watch some stuff.
Right, and the only reason I was like kind of okay putting it mostly into crit damages because there was a while where I was using. I did have decent sharp eyes on like my gloves, and then I was using dice to like help get me there.
That's what I was thinking when I saw those legendary gloves. I was like, "There's got to be like decent sharp eyes and a line of stat on there or something."
It was originally, and then I rolled it once and got that, and I was like, "Okay, we're done."
Yeah, because I mean, essentially, it is a
10% crit.
Well, yeah, it's critical damage, and it basically is the function of a V matrix slot, which of course is money in the beginning.
Yeah.
Soul reboot secondary emblem. The critical rate is here, but there's like a V. There's like a V next to it, so you can like. Okay. I'll take that into account. Okay. Yeah, I think we just missed. No, we didn't miss. Flag race. I got it just in time. Not even late. Not even too late. But yeah, I think we got everything.
I think so. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, cool. If something does come to mind, just hit me up on Discord or message me in the chat, and I'll be here. Otherwise, I hope we get some positive extra changes for Thunderbreaker soon, and if not, then I hope you can, find your way within the class and still find some of the things that you like worthy enough to keep playing.
I think the optimal way to play Thunderbreaker at that point would be to not play Thunderbreaker.
Yeah, it would be to job change to a different character. Yeah, it's possible.
But we can hope.
Just like the optimal play for me for 5th job Demon Avenger was to switch mains. Yeah, sometimes that's the way to go.
Right. Anyways, I'll let you get to your stuff. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, no problem. And I'll see you around. Good luck. Okay, let's get this flag raising. Ooh, that guy got lucky. What? Fucking portal. Did that guy just have a teleport, by the way? Instead of going through the portal, there was like a teleport indicator around him. Oh, we gotta wait here. Oh my god. Haha, see? That guy didn't wait. He fucked up. Oh, he got a jump down there. He got lucky. Okay. What? And now all of my inputs suddenly work. Okay. Well. This is risky. Oh, they took the risk. I'm gonna get second because of my ping. Fuck off. Stupid bullshit ping. Oh, if you like this video, thank you for watching. And yeah, check the description of the video for extra sources if you want one of these sessions, or if you have input for me for my big class tier list grid. If you want to help keep that up to date, please send data on your monster skill per hour, on your on your battle analyses, and on your if you have training videos of you in Moonbridge or higher, please submit those. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you live on stream. Bye. Oh, and we have a big, lastly, we have a big Star Forcing highlight video premiering tomorrow on the channel. It's going to be a really good video. Make sure you don't miss out on that one. All right, see you guys tomorrow. Bye.